You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 33. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hello and welcome back to the Tricorder Transmissions. As always, I am Craig.
And I am Jeff.
And this week we are going to be talking about Mirror Mirror. But as always, Jeff, I'm sure you have some news for us to talk about.
Yeah, a couple little things are going on. I think one of the most exciting ones is we've talked about Shatner's one-man show before that we both saw on Broadway a while back. Was it a year or two?
Yeah, it was a February, so I think it might have been February 13.
Yeah, that sounds could have been that. So that show is actually going to be broadcast over the Fathom Events Network, which is in movie theaters, hopefully nearby. I know the AMC Theater, which is 10 minutes down the road from me, frequently has Fathom events, as does a couple of other theaters that are relatively close. But I don't know about you, Craig, but sometimes it seems like the Fathom events that are at these theaters are kind of, one theater will get one, the other theaters won't. And so you never kind of know what theaters are going to pick up what events.
Yeah, I think the best bet is to check on the Fathom Events website probably. But that's awesome, especially for people that didn't, that were in cities that Shatner didn't hit. I know he took that show on the road. So for cities that he didn't hit, that's a really, really great opportunity for people to see that. And I can't recommend that show enough. It was 90 minutes straight of Shatner telling his life story with graphics behind him at certain points helping out. And yeah, what a fun show. Really cool to see that. That's going to be up there on the big screen for people to see.
I agree. I absolutely adored that show, and something that I think is really great about that show that I don't hear a lot of people mention that is that he didn't talk a heck of a lot about Star Trek, only a little bit. So you got to learn a lot more about him outside of Trek. His life leading up to Trek and some of the other things he did, and a lot of the Shakespearean theater that he did, and it's really cool stuff. If you're interested in William Shatner's life, I found it really enlightening. So a lot of things that I didn't know.
Yeah, same here.
So definitely catch that at a movie theater near you. Hopefully you'll be able to see that at some point. Also, it looks like Nichelle Nichols is going to be in a new independent film by the name of Behind Glass Walls. I don't know a heck of a lot about it, but it seems to be about a guy with relationship issues, and he's struggling with some troubles with relationships, and he has to kind of break out of his own shell.
Good for her.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing her in much of anything, so this could be interesting to check this out and see what she's doing. She's taking on a role of a woman named Nadine in the movie, but there's not much else about it.
Well, hopefully we have some updates to give as the production moves along and eventually comes close to being available for people to watch.
Yeah. So I think that about rounds out the news section of the show. So you want to jump into air dates?
I will get into the synopsis real quick. A transporter malfunction sends Kirk, McCoy, Scotty, and Uhura into a parallel universe where the Federation is replaced by an evil empire. Kirk is a despot and Spock is a cunning pirate. Yeah.
So the air date for the original show was October 6th of 1967, and we got a remaster on November 11th of 2006. So pretty cool. So ready to fire this one up?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so we are going to start our scene-specific commentary in 3, 2, 1. And we don't get a flyby, huh?
Yeah, well, you know what? That's really interesting. And one of the things I was going to say, and we've talked about this a whole bunch, is the idea of what Star Trek would be like if the original series was made, sort of using today's TV standards.
Right.
And watching this episode, I sort of almost wish that could be the case, because this could be like a long season story arc.
Oh yeah, oh for sure.
And it would be really cool. And I know there's a ton of other sort of spin-offs that were done in the other series, but man, if ever there was an opportunity to really build, a block of episodes around a story, this episode really does it.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of, we've talked about them going back to the well.
Yeah.
And although this episode is kind of breaking out of that, but they did kind of go back to the well for the intro, where they're kind of once again bargaining for the rights to mine dilithium crystals and other, meaningful ores. So it's kind of interesting that you find Starfleet. You think you're supposed to be going where no man's gone before, but
yeah,
they're really just going to find some minerals to mine there, some precious minerals.
Yeah, and this is never resolved in the episode.
No, it's not.
And I like this moment here where the guy says, if we don't agree to give it to you, you could take it from us. And, Kirk basically says, but we won't.
Yeah.
Which it's weird. It almost seems like the guy's kind of tempting them to.
Yeah, really. Or he's just trying to see where they'll go. I like how Kirk puts on his formal uniform for the negotiations too.
Yeah. That is a nice touch.
Yeah. So here's another example of how the transporters can malfunction, huh?
Yeah. You know what? I really think if I was captain on a star, on a Starfleet vessel, I would probably use the
shuttlecrafts?
The shuttlecrafts to go to and from planet.
I probably would too, because this is, we've seen a couple of these. Once, Kirk gets split in two. Now they've switched universes entirely.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of things that can go wrong that are not predictable necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
Look how ripped Uhura is.
Yeah, she's got some nice...
Some abs going on there.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't really ever get to see that.
No.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of midriffs in this episode.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is what Kirk's dress uniform looks like in the Mirror universe. This isn't the Mirror yellow shirt, because there's Spock's Mirror blue shirt.
Yeah.
So they must have done a lot of alternate costuming in this episode.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really why I think that there was so much potential here to really, give us more than we got in this episode in terms of really exploring the universe. And
for sure.
Man, it would really, I can almost picture it in my head, like, a good 6 to 8 episodes of a season devoted to just hanging out in the Mirror universe. And, we don't really even see much of what's going on in the other universe. And I guess that's more, due to the fact that they figure it out over there pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, here's a remastered effect for anybody who's watching along. This guy's getting agonized here with his punishment device, and there'll be a little bit of a sparking fade off there. See a little fade off?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they added that in. So, this brings me to something that I wanted to discuss with you in this episode, because this is one of my one of the ones I remember very vividly from my childhood, having seen and really, really liked. But over the years, I've wondered, maybe I'm being too literal, but in the Mirror universe, it seems like everything has an opposite, right? Even down to the ship flying in the opposite direction when orbiting the planet, right? Everything is the opposite.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that don't have an opposite counterpart in the regular universe, one of which is the agonizer, right?
Yeah.
So you would think the opposite would be some sort of like happyizer, right? It would be like a pleasure device that they could use for reward. So, Sulu does a good job evading the Klingons, and Kirk's like, oh, you did a really good job there evading those Klingons. You need the happyizer. And Sulu's like, oh my. You get him like the happiness factor. You can just kind of put it on your chest and you feel good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that would be a great opposite effect.
Oh, totally.
Why they have that? I'm surprised they don't.
Yeah, and you'd think if any future would develop that technology, it would be the future that is Star Trek.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So there are a couple of other technologies that come up in this episode that don't have an alternate in the regular universe, and I'll point those out as we go through them.
All right.
Some pretty cool stuff. So we're in the mirror universe. Kirk has a log going on with an unknown star date, and he's kind of just laying out all of this stuff that's just happened. So we got a lot of commentary about the brutality that he's witnessed. And notice that I love the sashes and daggers. So is it only like ranking officers get those? Because like the regular the guy there at the transport, I don't think he gets a dagger and a sash, right?
Yeah.
And the regular security guys, do they get them? No, the security guys don't have them.
Yeah.
But they have agonizers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody's required to hold one of those.
Except the ranking officers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Another question that I had how did their clothes change in the transporter? You notice that? Like somehow they're the same people, but their clothes switched with the other people. So the transporter somehow put the right clothes in the right universe, but not the right people.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, that begs the question. Does the transporter have some sort of a pattern for your clothes? So when you're beaming down and up, like it can recreate your clothing?
Oh, that's a very interesting point. I always just assumed that it was part of you being disassembled. But yeah, the whole transporter technology.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if it really, so it basically breaks down your atoms, right?
Right.
And then reassembles them.
Right.
So yeah, it's a good point there. Where do the clothes factor in? Yeah.
Right. But you watch other sci-fi movies, right, with people traveling in space, and when they come back onto a ship from being outside, they have to be cleansed, right? They have to go through like a decompression chamber and they spray them with the dust to make sure they don't have any foreign contaminants. Maybe the transporter does that. Maybe the transporter goes through their clothing and removes any particles that don't belong, right? So they come on and they're fresh and they're not infected with anything.
Sure.
Yeah, I've never thought about it, but maybe that's the reason why it would alter their clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Not making excuses, but anyway.
So now they're basically talking through, and Kirk's pretty much figured out that they're in a parallel universe.
Yeah, Kirk's got to play the Spock role kind of in this one and figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah. And it's really cool here when Uhura sort of has that moment where she realizes that there's another version of her out there somewhere.
Yeah.
She does a lot of really cool, subtle things in this episode, and I think one of them's even coming up later in this scene.
Yeah, I love the fact that Uhura has such an expanded role in this. You get so much more Uhura than you get in just about any other episode. So I'm really glad that they got her a little more out front.
Yeah.
Than being behind the scenes. So it's really cool they were writing her in a little bit more. But I love how Kirk kind of just figured out this whole thing with the ion storm and messed with the circuits. And, he just kind of, right off the cuff, his first theory is the right one.
Yeah.
And this part right here is what kind of throws me for a loop, because Kirk pretty much figures out all these different angles. He's okay, we got to be really covert. You got to go and you got to, Scotty, you need to go mess with the phaser array so that they think that the ion storm knocked them out. And then we have to communicate using only secure channels or on our own communicators. He has all this stuff figured out. But in all these other episodes, he overlooks so many things.
Yeah.
Like, Kirk, what's going on, man?
Which really lends support to my sort of multi-episode story arc.
Exactly.
Theory.
They could have fleshed it out more.
Yeah.
It's a shame two-parters weren't more prevalent.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing here is, in very much a sort of mirror scenario, they are negotiating with that same alien race for dilithium crystals in this mirror universe. And of course, the option here is the Starfleet order came down, destroy them and take the crystals. Yes,
exactly. So we're talking about pretty much phasering the entire planet into submission, as opposed to, negotiating and waiting and negotiating and waiting. So it's a completely different tactic in the mirror universe. And notice what color shirt Sulu's wearing.
Yeah, he's got a red one on.
So what does that mean?
It means that he's also
he's security chief.
Security chief, yeah.
Yeah, and guess what else it means?
What's that?
Sulu is the only character to wear all three colors.
Oh, go Sulu.
Yeah, he wore the blue shirt and Where No Man's Gone Before when he was the in the the little the plant area. I think he was an astrobiologist or something in that. He
Yes.
normally wears the gold, and here in the mirror he's wearing the red.
Ah,
So
excellent.
he's the only one who's done that.
That's a cool little fact.
Yeah, a little factoid for you.
And we've just gotten word from Starfleet that there is no alternative to the directive. So
No,
this
but there's an
alien-
alternative captain's chair
Yeah.
with a higher back on it. So a little bit different. So the chair is slightly different in the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I assume that's more just driven by the ego of the parallel personalities.
Definitely. Oh, and I like the security protocols are so different. They got to run everything by Security Chief Sulu here. Scotty, the chief engineer, can't even walk into the phaser area to check a system without checking with security first for clearance, even if he has orders directly from the captain.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. And Scotty he's gonna radio up to Kirk and kind of just resign himself to, well, couldn't make it work. Sorry, no damage. So now Kirk's got to improvise even further.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about this episode, though, is how fully fleshed out the entire parallel universe is. You talked about the costumes earlier and how fully realized those are. But at the same time, you've got this whole sort of alternative to Starfleet called, the Empire.
Yep.
And the whole way that you basically are promoted in the Empire is completely different than Starfleet.
Oh, totally.
And there's so much here that it is pretty remarkable that they were able to squeeze it all in and have it feel fully realized and completely fleshed out.
That's a good point. I didn't really think of it that way. Is that they've kind of crammed so much story and so much exploration of a different universe into 50 minutes. Actually, less, because you still have a little bit of time at the beginning at the end.
Yeah,
where they're not in the alternate universe. So, is what we belaboring the fact that this could have been a multi-part episode, but
yeah,
it's amazing that they were able to flesh the story out so well.
Yeah,
in the regular episode.
Yeah, I mean, they almost didn't have to, so it's really cool to see all the little added, details that are there, to sort of look for. It's really cool, and it's one of my favorite aspects of this episode.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Chekhov there, because the other male characters at least got some sort of a modification. Spock got a cool goatee, Sulu's got a big scar, Chekhov gets nothing.
Yeah, it looks like his wig might be gone, though.
Now, he might have grown his hair in by this point, I think.
Yeah.
But, everybody gets some cool alternate feature, but Chekhov, they could have given him a soul patch or, long sideburns or some kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
They could have glued him on.
Yeah. So what, Kirk has given the Hawkins, 12 hours? Which
is unprecedented according to Spock.
And prompted, I guess, Chekhov to see an opportunity here to make a move or a play, a political.
Yeah. And here it goes. Oh, guy nails Kirk right in the face with a palm slap. So this is
one of these guys, by the way, is Bobby Clark, who also played the Gorn.
Awesome. So this is cool because Sulu's a lower ranking guy, so low that he's got an agonizer on his belt, but he's got enough clout to have 3 guys there to help him out, right?
Yeah.
And the strange thing is, obviously, the premise is that if you kill the captain, you move up in rank, but I guess I can't imagine that if Chekhov was successful in this, that Spock or Sulu wouldn't have taken him right out.
Yeah.
They wouldn't stand for Sulu, for Chekhov being the captain of the Enterprise, right?
Uh-huh.
So, it's kind of, I guess this is really just to set up the premise, but.
Yeah, I guess he saw an opportunity and he took it.
Yeah, and notice how they vaporized both of those other guys.
Oh,
they didn't just stun them.
Yeah, there's no kind of inquiry or any kind of formal hearings or anything like that.
Nope, vaporized. Just done. You get one shot.
Yeah, which I'd imagine in the mirror universe would create all kinds of problems in terms of tracking people. Do you think anybody at this point is going to go through the trouble of recording that both those guys were vaporized?
Probably
in an attempt
not.
To take Kirk out.
Well, you have to wonder. I mean, they've got to record somewhere, the loss of the crew members. But I mean, I guess it's a normal thing in the mirror universe that some people are just going to die in the normal course of duty because they picked the wrong affiliations.
Yeah,
because you come to find out that most of these higher ranking guys have lackeys. That Kirk has a crew of people, Spock has a crew of people, Sulu has a crew of people. Everyone's got their own personal bodyguards.
Yeah,
I guess that can help you, either posture yourself or find a way to take out a higher ranking officer. So we're gonna listen to the computer here and find out, how the mirror counterparts got to where they are, because they're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on here and just how deep all of this goes.
Yeah.
So they're still gonna go through more of the Ion Storm stuff and try to figure out if they can get back.
Yeah. And this really shows the processing power of one of these, in this case, one of the Empire's computers.
Yeah, really.
And the database that it works from, because Kirk is asking it very direct questions about, would it be possible for the Ion Storm to send them to a parallel universe? And it says yes. And then he asks if there are conditions that man could recreate that would allow them to go back to their own universe. And the computer's able to answer all these questions instantly. So yeah, there's some heavy processing power going on.
Yeah, we're just now in our own time getting to the point where natural language computing is becoming a real thing.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a prediction that will come true. Another Star Trek prediction from the 60s that will become true in a relatively short amount of time from today.
Yeah, and what's funny about that? I was thinking about that when I was watching this episode. And we call them predictions, and ultimately that's what they are. But at the same time, you have to almost view them also as sort of influences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And, just a logical step that some people would take, based on maybe seeing it, when they were younger, or, Star Trek presenting an idea of the future and people just running with it.
Yeah. Lots and lots of examples of that in our everyday lives at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, you could argue that we probably would have gotten to where we are anyway without Star Trek. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to think that Star Trek got us there a lot sooner.
Yeah, more than likely. But we just found out a very interesting fact in the mirror universe that I really love, as horrible and terrible as it is that Captain Kirk got to his position on the Enterprise by killing Captain Pike.
Yeah.
So Captain Pike is not alive in the mirror universe.
Yeah, but you know what? In all, actuality, he was probably better off in the mirror universe.
More than likely.
Because we know his fate in the regular universe is to be confined to that box until the menagerie. And here is Mirror Kirk.
Oh, I love it.
Instantly, I guess, revealed. And Spock even explains that towards the end of the episode. And,
with the rest of them, too.
Yes. Spock seemed to figure this out fairly quickly. Maybe not what exactly happened, but the fact that the 4 people that beamed up were not the 4 people that beamed down.
It's interesting that Spock says, I'm going to keep you in the brig until I find a way to return you to where you belong. So he's automatically jumped to the conclusion that they are alternate versions, not that they've been
brainwashed
or affected by the beaming in some way. Yeah. Or, if I were Spock, I would immediately jump to the conclusion that, these are the split evil versions, like what happened to Kirk back in The Enemy Within. So we're seeing these violent, angry versions of these these 4 people. But
Yeah.
I guess maybe because the other versions didn't appear, maybe he's coming to a different conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Mirror Kirk is trying to bargain his way out by offering Spock all kinds of riches and power and his own command.
Mm-hmm. Now, the only thing that really wasn't sort of spelled out there is how long they had been on the ship. So feasibly, Spock could have had a couple of hours to come to that conclusion.
True. And look, who's that guy behind Spock? There's another Vulcan on the Enterprise.
Oh, wow. You know what? I didn't even catch those ears.
Look at that. Is this the first time we've seen another Vulcan on the Enterprise as a crew member?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and it's in the Mirror Universe. You have to assume there are other Vulcans on the Enterprise in the regular universe, no?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. And Chekhov's really getting worked here.
Yeah, that's another remastered effect, too. They enhanced the punishment effect. He's
Beautiful.
really selling it well, though.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta give him, he's got some chops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's another contradiction in the Mirror Universe that usually what he did warrants death, but Kirk is showing mercy, which is, you know, quite odd and is throwing suspicion. And look behind. So there's Spock's lead goon and there's Kirk's lead goon. So everybody's covering their own butts here, right? Right?
Yes.
Everybody's got a bodyguard. And you know, Spock's got the advantage though because he's Vulcan with a Vulcan bodyguard.
Yeah.
So I mean, how many goons of somebody else's crew would it take to take out Spock and his Vulcan counterpart, right? I mean, that would be really tough because you've seen Spock take out 5 or 6 guys at a time.
Yeah.
With his Vulcan strength. So
and you have to wonder, you know, Spock would still be doing everything based from a logical point of view.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if it's truly the opposite, wouldn't emotion have won over logic in the Mirror Universe?
That's an excellent point, and one I didn't even think of. Wow, that is man.
So see, there are some things that are not consistent with the opposite universe.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very interesting. So
either way,
yeah.
I think Nimoy really plays the Mirror Spock really
definitely.
well.
That was one thing I always loved about this episode when I was a kid. The Mirror Spock, the quote unquote evil Spock, is not really all that. He's a very tightly controlled evil.
Yeah, and it's funny. As cool as the facial hair is, you really don't need it to separate him, you know, to be able to tell the difference, at least.
No, but I tell you, the look is very effective because at the end of the episode, when you see regular Spock, you're like, oh, hey, wait, he looks really good. He looks like a real good guy.
Yeah. In this day and age, you would just, you know, chalk it up to the fact that they wanted to make a different action figure.
Right. Exactly. You know, I guess you can say that in the Mirror Universe, Spock is the only really, at least semi-predictable person on the ship. Like, you could probably still reason with Spock if you had a logical argument. He may still listen to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to all these other guys, you know, Kirk would probably just shoot you right on sight. You know,
totally.
We find out later that Sulu is pretty ruthless.
Oh, heck yeah.
You know, I wonder what the Mirror McCoy is like. We don't really get to know a lot about him.
No.
So because later on you'll hear some stuff about the orderlies or the nurses in the sick bay, you know, taking bets or gambling on, you know, the level of pain threshold some guy has.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wonder, is a doctor really that effective in the Mirror Universe?
Yeah. So here we have the introduction of another person who isn't around in the normal universe, and that's what Marlena played
she is at the end.
Yeah. But it's a character we don't already know.
Right.
Barbara Luna. And the interesting thing about Barbara Luna is her first name uses 2 capital B's.
Yeah. I noticed that when she was at a convention not long ago. I thought it was a typo.
Yeah.
On the guest list, but it wasn't. So it's Barbara.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost 2 words.
And she popped up in another William Shatner project years later. She appeared on an episode of T.J. Hooker.
I'll be damned.
And she was also married at one point to Doug McClure.
So that's probably our next Tricorder Transmissions thing after we're done with all this. So we'll go on to T.J. Hooker.
I would love that because that is a show that I probably haven't seen as many episodes as I need to.
I've only maybe seen a handful. But is this the first time we've seen a replicator inside Kirk's quarters, by the way?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, I was seriously jealous of the Mirror Kirk's entire scene here.
Yeah.
From his clothes to his room and even the woman that he's got by his side.
He's got it all, man.
Yeah, Mirror Kirk is really he's living it up, man.
Yeah, he is. He's taking advantage of the captain position. You know, he's just soaking it all in. So he comes in and she's just laying there on the bed, like just waiting for him. Yeah.
And I think this is another
great scene.
Yeah. But I think the Marlena character is a really, really great addition to this episode. It adds, in addition to the whole ticking time bomb is that is the destruction of the Halkin race and needing to get back to their own universe. You have this whole Marlena subplot where Kirk starts to feel like he has to take care of her too before he leaves.
Exactly. And interesting little sub scene we just had there is that Spock, even though he's the mirror evil Spock, he still has a level of loyalty to Kirk because he informs Kirk that Starfleet has given Spock orders to kill him.
Yeah.
Right. So you would think this is the mirror universe. Like Sulu will find out later. Will figure out what these orders are and just go to carry them out himself. Right. He doesn't even think for a minute to present that to Kirk and say, hey, listen, man, Starfleet wants me to kill you. But Spock, even it's kind of even against protocol there.
Yeah. Oh, and here we go.
Yep. The Tantalus field.
Man, this is another mirror exclusive.
Yeah. And I thought this would be really cool if they had an opposite version, in the regular universe, like, you'd be doing a good job and like an ice cream sandwich would appear in your hand, right?
Yeah.
Like, good job, dude. Yeah. Or, like you'd be, up for a promotion or whatever. And all of a sudden the color of your shirt would change or the number of bands on your wrist. Boom. You would just press a button. Yeah. I think it'd be really awesome. But so apparently it came from some alien scientist in a laboratory that they plundered. That's what Marlena just said. If you're wondering where the Tantalus device came from.
And this really shows us how the mirror universe Kirk has survived for so long. So if you're asking yourself, wouldn't Spock have made a move much sooner, or wouldn't so-and-so have made a move much sooner, how could Kirk really maintain being captain? And this is really the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And, you got to think, how much trust does Mirror Kirk have in Marlena to number one, tell her about the device, and number two, teach her how to use it?
Yeah.
Because she could easily just use it to vaporize him.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that's part of my jealousy of this Mirror Kirk, because he's got a woman by his side that he is trusting with his life, and that shows that she is extremely, extremely loyal. And, that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, really. Really. I mean, you think of how ruthless all of these people are in this universe. I mean, all it takes is for one person to come up to her and offer her something, greater than what she thinks she's getting from Kirk. She goes back to his quarters, fires with the Tantalus field, wipes Kirk right out.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's boing, done. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll see it in motion later.
Yeah. But it seems like her only real desire is to just be the captain's woman.
Exactly. But later on, you'll find out she doesn't care what captain it is. So when she thinks Kirk is about to dump her, she's like, transfer me. I'll find a new person somewhere else.
Uh-huh. I almost got the indication that they were on some kind of rocky path prior to Kirk Prime sort of beaming up.
I don't know how they couldn't have been, because everybody's path is rocky in the mirror universe.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's good friends.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'd be incredibly stressful. It would have been neat if everybody on the Mirror Universe Enterprise looked about 5 to 7 years older.
All the stress.
Put some gray hairs in there. And
yeah, you would think that Spock would definitely be partially gray. You think Kirk would be almost completely gray at this point with everything they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. But here's another use of the computer.
Yeah.
So Spock has been alerted that there's some heavy computer use going on.
Yeah, he's basically like checking the the browser history.
Yeah, they forgot to clear their browser history, but they did lock it down under a password protection. So Spock is understandably curious, and now Sulu is going to chime in, and he's also noticed the computer usage. So this is a really interesting conversation between Sulu and Spock. So this is where you start to get the taste of how ruthless Sulu is.
Yeah, and he's using a communicator.
Yeah, for a private conversation. So that's he doesn't want to be monitored, I guess. There's
although you're talking
star.
Out in the open on the bridge.
That's true. Good point. Good point.
Yeah, I love Sulu in this episode.
Yeah, he is awesome, and he gets even better later.
Yeah.
So now, you know what? This conversation between Spock and Sulu makes me wonder, how did these guys survive so long? I mean, I can't believe they haven't all killed each other by now. I mean, it is amazing to me if you think about all of the adventures of normal universe we've seen, Prime Universe, all of those had a parallel adventure in the mirror universe. Just if you were to go back and look at every single one of those episodes, I can't imagine that there wouldn't have been times like, think about a muck time in the alternate universe. Do you think that they would have thought about trying to spare Spock's life or spare or make it so Kirk appeared dead and he wasn't actually dead? They just killed him off. Like, oh, here's a good example of how we can take Kirk out and Spock can be the captain or whatnot.
Yeah, they might not even have gotten to Vulcan.
That's true. That's true. Well, what would shore leave have been like in the mirror universe?
We can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that would be really cool to go back and look at. I wonder if there's any fiction out there of the any of these old episodes reimagined in the mirror universe.
Yeah. So and we've got a wardrobe change here for Marlena. Yes,
interesting getup.
Yeah.
Kind of almost translucent robes. Kind of risque, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of risque. You can, and she's got some sort of black lace sleeves or blue lace sleeves. Strange. And I guess now she just assumes that their relationship is over because Kirk has something to do.
Yeah.
So jumps to a conclusion here.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine that she has to notice that there's something different about him.
Oh, she does. And she's going to actually say as much in a minute or two here.
Yeah.
And she's going to notice, he's not only is he acting different, but the way he's treating her is quite a bit different as well than the I can imagine what we saw with the little glimpse of the mirror Kirk in the regular Prime universe. He doesn't seem to put up with much of anything.
No.
So he's really quick to resort to anger and violence. So
yeah,
you can only imagine what the relationship between them must have been like.
Mm-hmm.
But and you know what? Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, and that ultimately brings us back to a discussion that we had during The Enemy Within or what The Naked Time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, what is, the effect or, the argument of, nature versus nurture.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like in the Star Trek universe, they really fall on the side of, you're influenced by your surroundings and the way that you're raised.
True. Yep.
As opposed to if you're inherently good, you'll find a way to be good. Whereas here it seems like if there's a way for you to be bad.
Yeah, you're going to be completely bad.
And I mean, that stays consistent throughout the whole Star Trek universe, because even in was it Insurrection or Nemesis, the one that had the Picard clone?
Nemesis.
Yeah, Nemesis. I mean, they stay true to it because you'd think a guy like Picard can never be as evil as his clone is in Nemesis. But so I think that's kind of an interesting stance that they took, and they stayed committed to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And how bold is Marlena to stand up to him like that? She goes to smack him.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know about these mirror people, you can imagine that was probably grounds for him to shoot her right on sight.
Yeah. I'd imagine, though, that the physical violence aspect of the society is probably almost as common as like a high five.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
And who knows, their relationship might have even sort of been driven by some light physical activity.
Yeah.
In terms of, smacks and,
Scotty's favorite Jeffries tube again. He's always in the same tube.
Yeah. And this episode, we've talked a lot about Mark Daniels, this series, and this is another episode directed by Mark Daniels, who directed last week's The Changeling as well. And here's a great Sulu and Uhura scene where Uhura has to distract Sulu from an alarm
his
that's
console,
show on his console.
Yeah, and this is one thing I really love about this scene is that these are two characters that rarely get the chance to break out of their traditional service roles. Like Uhura is pretty much always at the console. Sulu is pretty much always piloting the ship. And here you have like almost a love scene between the two.
Yeah.
And they're getting to do so much more than they usually ever get to do.
Uh-huh.
And they do a pretty damn good job of it too. And you have to hand it to Kay for doing that.
Yeah.
It must have been kind of awkward for him.
And I like how she already had some kind of blunt instrument out, but she pulled the one on her side out as well.
Yeah, so she was pretty much ready to shank him.
Mm-hmm. And I like how she gave the order to this other guy to take over. It seems like she had gotten up to speed very quickly on protocol in this universe.
Yeah, you got to hand it to Kirk and Uhura especially, because they both seem to be able to adapt to how they needed to act. Scotty was really awkward. Like, he wasn't forceful at all when he went to check the phaser banks. He's like, oh yeah, well, I got kind of some orders to do this. And he should have been in that guy's face. Like, hey, you're gonna tell me I can't execute the captain's orders? Better get your agonizer out, pal.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. McCoy doesn't really get a chance to do much of anything.
No, I mean, McCoy's really sort of useless until the thrilling climax of this episode.
Yeah, essentially. So now Spock is on to him.
Yeah.
Spock's got the drop on Kirk, got the phaser. Kirk's trying to reprogram the transporter panel here, and Kirk's still, he's playing it up. He's telling Spock to just go ahead and shoot me now.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't have time for your crap, Spock.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and shoot me.
And you'd almost think that when they were putting this whole plan together, it might have been prudent to just somehow disable Spock. You
would think. And you know what else I thought? This was the first time I thought about this in this episode, and I watched this earlier to do some research for our discussion here, is that all Spock had to do was grab a hold of Kirk and mind meld with him.
Yeah.
Oh, and there are many times in Star Trek where the stunt doubles are obvious, and this is one of the most obvious scenes.
Yeah.
When they shoot to the overhead, you can see Spock's stunt double is definitely not Nimoy.
Yeah, he's got a different build.
I think he might be a black guy.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and he's got his hairstyle's completely different.
Yeah. But this was great. We had Spock taking on
four. Yeah. I love the look on Spock's face there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, double axe handle. Jinx.
Yeah.
And here is what it takes to knock out a Vulcan.
Oof.
Some sort of a stone object to the head. And this actually marks the first time Spock has been knocked out on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Will not be the last, but it's the first.
Yeah, and this is a serious injury.
Yeah, apparently.
They must have hit something. They must have hit that off switch exactly where you need to hit it.
Yeah, some sort of a serious head trauma. So, and here comes the good Dr. McCoy is going to save Spock's life.
Yeah, and it's clearly indicated that this Spock will die.
Yeah.
And, this is a real test of McCoy's character, because as insignificant as this Spock should be to him, he's still sort of following his oath as a doctor, which is basically to value every life.
Right, and it's also a test for Kirk, because Kirk has also vowed to value life as being a Starfleet captain. He could easily have said, McCoy, get your butt to the transporter room with us. You're not touching that guy. We got to go.
Yeah.
You know? Aha! And in walks Mr. Sulu and his goon squad. I love Mirror Sulu, man.
Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen here. I guess they tried their best, but oh well. They're caught.
Yep. And Sulu has a whole plot he's come up with where he's going to shank Kirk and Spock and make it look like they killed each other, making him the new captain, which is, you know, on the surface, it's a cool sounding thing, but thinking about it more deeply, now we kind of have an understanding of what the ranking structure is. So Sulu is basically third in command.
Yeah.
Tantalus Field. These poor SOBs just vanishing it, but she doesn't do it to Sulu.
Yeah.
But you got to hand it to Sulu. He's got some balls because he stays in fights even after those other dudes disappeared.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. I mean, look, and Kirk gives him the look.
Yeah.
And Kirk is the only one that goes forward to take him out. Scotty doesn't try to help.
Oh, no.
No, they're just staring at him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Kirk takes him out pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. Kirk runs a clinic on him.
Yeah, he chops him in the back of the head. That's it, done. So that's once again Kirk's version of the neck pinch, the nerve pinch. He's got a karate chop version.
So as we rush towards the end of the episode real quick, I'd like to mention that this episode was written by Jerome Bixby, who was a science fiction writer, died in 1998 at the age of 75. And a lot of people might know him for his Twilight Zone episode, It's a Good Life, which was also one of the stories that was adapted for the motion picture.
Yep. Very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice little tidbits about the background.
Yeah, they had some good, talented people working on this show. Yeah,
they certainly did. I always love to hear the stories about how much they wrote for other series or what they went on to do afterwards. There's so much crisscrossing of writers for these Trek episodes that, you know, they write, and actors and actresses that appear in a bunch of other series, you know?
Yeah. It's cool connecting all those dots. And I love the fact that Spock here is really explaining the mind meld to McCoy.
Yeah, as if he didn't know how it worked.
Yeah, and I love McCoy's reactions here.
Incredible face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Marlena has a phaser behind her back. Another one of those times where the audience knows something that the on-screen characters don't know.
Yeah.
But Uhura sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what I really love about this scene is this Uhura gets physical.
Yeah.
Like, she totally pounces from behind. Like Marlena just doesn't even think that Uhura is going to jump in and chop the phaser out of her hand, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's really hard not to feel sympathetic towards Marlena here.
It's tough.
You know, she's seeing sort of an opportunity to escape, you know, the life that she knows for something that is obviously better. Yeah,
but you know what's a really messed up thought? There goes Uhura. Boom, jumps right in. What's a really messed up thought is the four of them going back, you know, McCoy, Kirk, Scotty, and Uhura would bring back the mirror versions to the proper universe. But if Marlena went, it would bring the prime Marlena back and strand her in the mirror universe. So her counterpart would be stuck in a, I mean, I can't even imagine you're by yourself there. How would she even adapt at that point? She'd be pretty much done. Yeah. Right? So, I mean, that's a really sad thought. But also, wouldn't she have
to be on the transporter because...
No. No, listen, to when the episode ends, Spock says he assumes that the others returned automatically when they beam over. So... I don't necessarily think it that's a really weird concept, but they didn't bring them to the transporter room and have them standing there kind of waiting because there was really no way for them to communicate that they were coming back at any time. Yeah.
So we had this really quick scenario where they weren't going to be able to auto activate the transporter and somebody had to stay behind.
Right. So we find out that it was Spock who disabled the transporter so that he could delay their exit.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. And
this is great because this is Spock sort of shining through.
Yep. So you get the real Spock. Spock is very, very similar in both universes. I mean, and this is a great speech from Kirk, by the way.
He's basically reshaping the entire mirror universe here.
Exactly.
He's planting a seed in Spock's mind that Spock's going to run with, which is, the way that they can resolve this whole Hulkin scenario. And he even lays out, all the plans or all the things that Spock needs to do.
Yep, exactly. So, Kirk once again proves that he's got that mental prowess.
Yeah.
So he's appealing to Spock's logical side because he can tell that even in the mirror universe, Spock has one consistency, and that's his logical side.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty interesting. But one thing that we did gloss over in our conversation was that there was another series first that just occurred. Scotty, for the first time ever, called Kirk Jim.
Yes.
So that doesn't happen very often. Rarely does he get called Jim. So only pretty much Spock and McCoy have really called him Jim in the past, besides casual encounters with non-regular characters, old girlfriends or whatnot. But for Scotty, a junior officer to Kirk, to call him Jim, I guess that would indicate that they have a depth of friendship beyond, their duty stations.
Yeah.
So here we're at Kirk making a couple of closing comments to Spock as he's about to beam out, and Spock says he'll consider it.
Yeah.
So that's a seed that gets planted, and I believe that gets brought more into fruition in some of the further episodes down the line.
Okay.
So the Enterprise mirror episodes are actually a prequel to this, and the Deep Space Nines occur after. So we'll get more into that. I guess we just teased our extended conversation we're going to be having.
Yeah.
A few days after this posts, we'll be having one of our famous supplemental log extended episodes where we're going to have a couple special guests on to discuss this mirror stuff a little further.
Yeah.
So, well, everything's back to normal. We're back, and just in time for our humorous ending.
Yes. And this is
a
Kirk basically asking Spock, how did you know that we weren't ourselves? And, Spock basically says, it's easy for you to, act barbaric. It's a lot harder for somebody who's barbaric to act civil.
Yes. And he actually goes so far as to say, the mirror humans were the very flower of humanity, and he found them refreshing. So yeah, he had an opportunity to observe the counterparts quite closely. Yeah, it's great. Brutal, savage, unprincipled, uncivilized, and treacherous. Mm-hmm. So great stuff. This is actually kind of a reversal of a lot of the ending stingers, the humorous ending stingers. Usually they're at Spock's expense. This time he's kind of flipping the script. He's insulting Kirk and McCoy. Mm-hmm. And Kirk says, I think we've been insulted. McCoy says, I'm sure we have. Mm-hmm. And then here she is.
Yes. We've got our prime Marlena.
Yes, and with a completely different hairdo, almost a Janice Rand hairdo.
Yeah.
She's almost got the beehive thing very close. Mm-hmm. And she's just assigned last week. So timelines may be a little bit different?
Yeah, because obviously that Marlena hadn't been hanging out in the mirror universe for only a week.
No, I would think not.
Well, I don't think Kirk would have given her the controls to the death machine.
Yeah, she's got to have had a lot of time in, because that's too much power to give somebody. Mm-hmm. Before you can know implicitly that you can trust them. And here's Kirk kind of scamming on her already.
Yeah, and he says, I have an idea we're going to become good friends.
Yeah, and here he's going to get up in a minute and go Mac.
Yeah.
Here he goes.
Although we will never see her again.
No, we won't. So apparently it didn't work out too well.
Yeah.
And look how bored Chekhov looks.
Wow, I can't believe that we are done.
Yeah, it went fast.
Wow, this episode went really, really fast.
Yeah, really quickly. So
I guess it's time to discuss essential versus non-essential. And do you want to go first?
Well, I always seem to go first, but I don't think there's going to be much argument on this one.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to pick one thing to say was essential to make this episode essential, it's just the introduction of the mirror universe. That's more than enough, I think.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And I'm going to confess, I normally let you go first because a lot of times I don't know exactly what I'm going to say.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
kidding. But yeah, I think in addition to the introduction in the Mirror Universe, if you want to argue, there are some great McCoy character moments here at the end. And even Uhura's character, you get some really good insight into her ability to integrate into situations and to do more than just sit at the communications table or station and do her job.
Great. That's a great observation. I'm glad that you said that, because I really only focused on the Mirror Universe introduction, but there's a lot of great Uhura stuff in this episode. And we pointed a lot of that out. It's great that they gave her some more stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I think she could do a lot more. So I think it's great. The last couple episodes, we've seen little tidbits, her fixing the console there and stuff like that. And
yep.
But so double essential vote, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
And I am really looking forward to our supplemental extended discussion on this episode, because I know we're going to have some guests on who really, really enjoy this episode. And I've enjoyed every episode supplemental that we've done immensely, and they make for some really, really great discussions. And
I agree.
Bringing some new blood to the table here, and some old friends. So I think it's going to be a really, really great episode for us and also for the listeners.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad there was you slipped in a little extra teaser there at the end. So yeah, as Craig was saying, we are going to have a new guest to the show, as well as an old standby is going to be back again. So I think this is going to be a really fun one. I love getting new people on the show.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how that came to be in that episode introduction. But man, I'm so excited for this, because it's almost two worlds colliding for me, which is awesome.
Yeah, I know. Let's not spoil it now. Let's wait until it gets there, so that we can maintain that level of excitement.
Yes.
All right. So another episode has been wrapped up. Thanks as always for listening, and we haven't mentioned it on the last couple of episodes at the end like we normally do. So let's throw it back out there. You can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. You can hit us on Twitter at TTT_pod, or our own website, thetricordertransmissions.com. Anytime. We'd love to hear from you. We got some people who post on our Facebooks. Great to talk back and forth to the fans. And we'll see you on the internet and next week.
I think we're due for a pickup.
The name of the episode is Mirror, Mirror. I play a character by the name of Marlena Moreau, who was the captain's woman. I've been a captain's woman, and I like it.
She just seemed a nice, likable girl. I think we could become friends.
And still is. And don't you forget it.
You're the captain's woman, until he says you're not.
I think Captain Kirk getting all those women is disgusting. Every week, they'd bring some beautiful girl on, and I'd have to make love to her. And it was simply a chore. And it was something that I had to struggle with.
When he kissed me on screen, he really kissed me. And if you'll notice when you're watching, when he's kissing me and when we pull apart, not only is my lipstick gone, but my lips are like swollen a little. He really kissed me.
And the ship, all this power surging and throbbing, yet under control.
Here is another girl. It was very, very difficult.
I had an interesting situation. About the fourth day into shooting, I woke up with a strep throat. How does Marlena fit in?
How does Marlena want to fit in?
So I kind of dragged myself out of bed and went to the studio, and they took one look at me and they said, "Oh my God, call the doctor." I fell asleep. We had quite a time in the chem lab picking up after the storm. And he said, if she looks at anybody, you're all going to get sick. She's so infected. And, of course, the scenes that we had left with the good captain was the big smooch.
I've got to go.
They're not going to let us kiss. It's very hard for a working officer to shine as a woman every minute. And you demand perfection.
I've never seen perfection. But no woman could come closer to it.
So what they did do was stop that particular segment, and then they went on and did 2 or 3 more. And about a month later, I came back. I'd probably dropped a few pounds.